start streaming button before we can do that. Now we can do a sound check.
Okay, so what I said before was actually a lie.
That's true.
Well, yeah, I heard that.
Start streaming button before we can do that. Now we can do a sound check.
Okay, so what I said before was actually a lie.
That's true.
Well, yeah, I heard
Perfect.
that.
Start streaming button before we can do. All right. So we're going with. I'm just going to intro this thing, and we're just going to figure out what happens from there. And actually, your comments here about John McCain probably will flow perfectly into that because, you know, he's sort of the king.
Well, I have because I have like an actual real life
Right.
Arizona story that we have on this, so I can at least
Perfect.
talk to that.
I don't really have anything. Actually, I have a question for the audience. All right. There's my question for the audience. All right. I guess there's nothing left to do except start your recording devices.
Click.
Kathunk.
Word to your mother. So on the other podcast I do, Android App Addicts, they both immediately, as soon as they start, they tap the mic to say test, test, test. I realize we never do that. It's like
No.
we just assume everything works. It's like Austin Powers. I'm going to put him in an unusual situation that's overly complicated and just trust everything's going to work out. You know,
They've obviously never had Neumann mics before, have they? $5,000 worth of bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
No.
no,
No, I always come in and the first thing I do is I launch Audacity and record a short blurb and play it back. So that's how I test.
but I have used Shure SM58s for so long in my career. That's not what this one is, but you know, I just assume microphones are essentially tanks that record stuff. And
Yeah, sure. SM58s are actually weapons.
Right.
I mean, you fling them around. Yeah.
your stage will collapse before your SM58 will break.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Starting a timer now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geek Rant, episode 335. Us versus them. Recorded August 26, 2018, and brought to you by Element OP Productions. ElementOP.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Drive Time Radio for Geeks. I'm your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles, the Oxygenator Wakeham. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Mark, and glad to see you're finally embracing that Sultan role full time.
You know, since you chose the name Us versus Them, now I've got this stupid Pink Floyd song in my head.
There are no stupid Pink Floyd songs.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think it's Us and Them. But anyway.
And Jinda says hello from the chat room. Hello, Jinda. You're now
Howdy,
famous
Jinda.
among tens of people. Congratulations. So I have a quick question for the audience. My church is looking for a way to record our services not from the board. For a lot of technical reasons, a line out from the board for recording and for broadcasting onto YouTube or Facebook or whatever is not a viable solution in this scenario. So we want to record the room without getting all the woof and the junk that comes with recording a room. So anybody out there having experience with that, Mark at elementop.com. I welcome your feedback. We're experimenting with some things right now, but the problem is what sounds perfectly normal to a human in the back of the room sounds like utter crap biscuits to a recording device in that exact same position as the human in the back of the room. It's amazing how that works.
Yeah. And you said it won't work for you, but the way we do it in our church is we have one coming out from the board and we have a mic on the camera we use, and we kind of blend those two together.
Yeah.
So
I think we could probably come out of the board, but the tech guy tells me that's not possible. I don't believe him, but I'm not in a position to argue with him. So
See, my 20 years of experience overrides your 6 months of experience. It says we can.
So anyway, that's my question to the audience. And now, Seth, what the heck is Harlem Nights?
The Eddie Murphy movie from the late 80s.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever watch it?
I vaguely remember it was him and Arsenio Hall in about 50 roles, right?
No, they only had like
one.
one role each, but it had Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Della Reese, tons of people in there. And I was looking through my Amazon Prime because I went through my TV. I tried to watch one of the preseason games, and I should have left it on. I could have fallen asleep much earlier, but I finally started. Forget that. I went to Amazon Prime, flipping through the new things, and Harlem Nights was there. Funny movie 20 years ago that is still actually 20 years ago, so 30 years ago. Golly, it came out in 89, so that's 30. Man, I'm getting old. But anyway, it still holds up well. You can see that like special effects and stuff have increased, and so the technical aspect isn't as good. But there was this one, spoilers.
Spoilers for a 30-year-old movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this one scene where Danny Aiello is talking to Richard Pryor, and he's just kind of, when Richard Pryor walks into his house, because Danny Aiello plays a police officer who had like gone into his house and was waiting on him. He was kind of singing this song, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got the swing. And he was just kind of singing it softly so that Richard Pryor knew he was there. And then they talked. And then the next scene was at Richard Pryor's nightclub. And that's the song the band was playing. And I went, oh, foreshadowing. He's going to be in the scene. So it was, and I was like, yep. And I just thought that was really cool that I picked up on that element of foreshadowing to kind of lend continuity to something that was the next day and just a random hard scene change. It was pretty cool. And so, Mark, all you're talking is rubbing off on me. So
your ninth grade literature teacher will be proud.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I recognized it in real time. So
good. And moving on to a slightly more somber note, right around 24 hours ago, Senator John McCain, the senator for Arizona, and we happen to have an Arizonan with us, passed away after a lengthy battle with illness. And Miles had something to say about it.
Well, I actually just wanted to. I don't want to get all kind of preachy about John McCain or anything, because some people love the guy and some people got rubbed up the wrong way by the guy. But, I can only tell a quick story. I just thought I'd throw this in because it was something that was unusually close to home. We moved to Phoenix in 2002, and my daughter, I think, was somewhere in maybe about four years old or something like that at the time. And after a few years of being here, as kids do, they want to do piano lessons or dance lessons, and she chose to become a ballerina dancer. That's what kids do when they're that age, right? So we went and found a local dance studio, and my wife got very involved in the studio because of all the kids. That's what mums do, I guess. And meanwhile, we'd also started buying some rental properties in Arizona. We bought a fourplex before the big housing crash, and one of the units in there we rented to this old guy, and he was kind of short, frail. He had diabetes. He was very sick, and I wasn't sure if this guy was going to be healthy enough to make it, but he was a really decent guy. And over the time you get to know your tenants, and I spoke to him and I found out he was a Vietnam veteran, and he was one of those guys that was dishonorably discharged from the army because he refused to follow an order from his commanding officer to effectively torch a village and kill all the villagers inside. And there was a lot of stories about this. I'm sure we've all heard those stories or watched, movies about it, that sort of thing. Anyway, as a result of these guys being dishonorably discharged, they were not allowed VA benefits. They didn't get any pension. They didn't get any. He got the minimal amount of VA healthcare, and this guy was dying. He was not very well. Well, funny thing happened. My wife, with her relationship in this dance studio, and this guy that we were renting to, it just so happens one of the other mothers worked for John McCain. She was in his office in Arizona, and she had direct line of dialogue. And my wife had just spoken to her on the side saying, well, we got this tenant, he's an ex-Vietnam vet, and he was dishonorably discharged and whatever. And her ears sort of peaked up a bit. And next thing you know, my wife is telling McCain the whole story about this guy. And funny thing is, a year later, all of his benefits were reinstated. His healthcare was reinstated. He got healthy. He had a good life. And he got back paid all the way back to like the 80s. So the guy walked away with nearly $1 million in his pocket because somebody gave a damn. And I look back at that, and I didn't know John McCain from a bar of soap, but everyone has a little story. And I just wanted to tell that story because it gave a side to somebody who took care of the other troops, took care of their own, if you like. Anyway, that was it. It's a positive story. I know that in a time when somebody passes, it's everyone's sad, and there'll be these sort of stories in the news that are just film snippets of every little bit that you're going to get. But I'd just like to tell a personal story once in a while when these things happen.
Right now, post McCain's death, there are two factions out there that are hard at work. One is trying to build his legacy and remind you of every great thing he ever did and of every noble deed that ever took place. And then there's others who are trying to prevent the building of a legacy, or maybe destroy what legacy he has, by reminding you of every terrible thing he ever did, every harsh word he ever spoke, every mistake he ever made. And the fact is that all humans are terrible people. That comes with humanity. But all humans have the capacity for greatness. That's also what comes with humanity. But what sparked my thinking, and what we'll be talking about tonight, is another seemingly intrinsic attitude or attribute of humanity, is this tribalism, this us versus them, right? And it's being evident right now. All you have to do is just search Google McCain, and you'll see two tribes develop pretty quickly: the pro-McCain and the anti-McCain. And we talk about this fairly often. Seth mentioned the NFL. That is nothing but tribalism rampant. When I go out somewhere and I'm wearing my Dallas Cowboys hat and I have the blue hat with the white star on it, I'm marking myself as a member of a tribe. And anybody who is in that tribe recognizes that symbol, and we have this shared connection immediately. Also, anybody who is opposed to my tribe immediately recognizes that symbol and decides, whether deep down or only in a good-natured ribbing sort of way, to not like me, right? So the people in my tribe see that sign and like me. People outside of my tribe see that sign and don't like me. And that's a thing I put on, right? But there's also a thing that I am. I'm a middle-aged white guy. That makes me part of a tribe. I'm a fat guy. That makes me part of a tribe. I don't intend to be parts of those tribes, but I am. And I the question that I want to discuss here, and it's going to be a very off the cuff sort of stream of consciousness discussion, is can we ever move beyond tribalism? Even in your sci-fi, right? Roddenberry pictured a world where the first contact with an alien being brought humanity together and ended tribalism on Earth. But it just made us part of a larger tribe. The Federation is now this tribe of many planets, and the whole series was about this tribe meeting other tribes, trying to bring some tribes in and trying to fight some other tribes. And so even in this quasi-utopian future that Roddenberry created, tribalism is essentially the defining factor in every one of those episodes. It is such a huge part of our lives, and we internalize it and we accept it. And I just wonder, can we move beyond it? Or is it just as much a part of us as any other marking of being a human, of breathing oxygen and of consuming carbohydrates? Is that just Now, see, a keto faction right now just shut me off because I said consuming carbohydrates. There's a tribe there that just declared me an enemy because I said that. And there's almost, that's what political correctness is, right? It's trying to not give your enemies any ammo. I hadn't really thought of it right now, but that seems to me the crux of political correctness is trying to be non-offensive to every tribe, which guess what? Makes you a tribe. You're now part of the political correctness tribe. All right, so I've spewed words long enough. You guys go now.
Well, let me throw a couple of thoughts. I believe, and I think it's reasonable that we flawed humans have an innate need of progression, and it comes down to where we came from. You know, as from the caves, the jungles, the beaches, wherever it might be, we've always been dealing with threat from other species or from other humans. And I think that we are just, in our DNA, we're just pre-programmed to look at something and determine, kind of have like an on-off switch with it. Is it friend? Is it foe? And identification of that is key to our survival. So when we think about tribes, it's kind of like a modern day progression of that learning experience that we all have to identify threat or friend or you know, ally or whatever. It's an unfortunate thing that becomes it's easier for people to understand that when they think in terms of a Boolean argument, a true false, an on off, a black white, you know, a plus minus kind of thing. But that's the way kind of physics works in the world, you know, where you've got night and day, and people have to think in terms of threat or non-threat. And tribe is just an identification of how you or the person you're dealing with fits into that model. That's just why I look at it.
Seth?
So there will always be tribalism. So the question isn't like, you know, it's how big a tribe do you want? And in a way, you can almost argue, how big of a person do you want to be? Are you going to be such a small and tiny person that your tribe can only include you? Or are you going to grow into the ultimate perfect person whose tribe includes not only every person, but every life on the planet Earth? So you could almost look in this in terms of a developmental growth chart, and instead of seeing, hey, you're 6'1" today, hey, your tribe is 2, hey, your tribe is 3 or 4, and you know, you're unlocking levels as you grow enough to see that there are some differences that are good, and you know, and then there's some differences that are just different. You know, some people are petty enough to make, I like chocolate, you like strawberry, you know, death to the loser, let's fight it out. And then, you know, and then you can kind of grow beyond and go, oh, I like chocolate, you like strawberry, more chocolate for me, more strawberry for you, we can both live great. And you can progress your way up and see the value in having, and it can go beyond people, having others around who fill in the gaps in your life versus thinking the only way you can survive is if you can take care of all the gaps by yourself.
I'm just trying to process that. Even within, let's say we have achieved a status of all humanity is me and I am all humanity. You know, that's sort of what the teachings of Buddha are, right? I have become all, and all things have become me. Even then, there's still going to be some us versus them. I guess my question revolves around what happens to a human if you take the us versus them out? Does that fundamentally break a person?
Yeah, they die. The species dies because we cannot evolve unless we can identify threat. The only way that would occur, and this is that if an alien race came down upon planet Earth to attack us, and then all human beings would rally together as a common tribe because it now had a common enemy. Its yin and its yang would balance. If there was no alien threat, there will always be war. There will always be threat and respond to threat within the human race. It's just in our DNA, and we cannot change that.
You're going really macro on that, Miles. You talk about, you've used the word enemy and you've used war, right? But that there's so much more than that. Like, just in my team of about 20 people at work, there's the group of people that like sushi and the group of people that call it bait. And that's tribes, right? And nobody's mad at anybody. But like if 5 of us say, hey, I'm going to go have sushi, there's always that one person who has to say, I enjoy your bait. And that's using the word bait is tribalism in itself. Nobody's mad at anybody. We're not going to throw sticks at each other, but it's just a way of saying, I'm not part of your group. At least for this next hour while we're at lunch, I'm not part of your group. And it's like there's a certain part of us that takes pride in that. There is pleasure in not being part of the group as much as there's pleasure in being part of a group. We seek out the groups. Maybe that's an American thing. Maybe listeners all over the world, tell me if that's not. Maybe that's just an American thing, and my experience is uniquely American. But we want to be a part of a group, but we also really have to say a part of a group that we're not. It's almost not worthwhile to have a tribe unless there's a tribe that you're not, and you have to specifically say, I'm not. To go back to the sports thing, right? I'm a Cowboys fan, therefore I must hate all Eagles fans. That's the rules. I didn't write the rules. That's just the rules. And it's so weird that there is this antagonism. And Miles, you're going to the big war version, but even why is it always struggle? Why can't it just be, I like Mexican food. Well, I like Thai food. Great, good. That's that group. Why do we have to say something denigrating about Thai food if we like Mexican food?
We're exercising our need to feel comfortable that we can identify a threat, even at the minimal level. And it's like the Star Trek guys versus the Star Wars guys, or it happens in all cases. We have to identify something that we feel threatened by, or something that we don't feel comfortable with, or something that isn't natural to us. And then having done that, we find it more comfortable to surround ourselves with like minds. That's just how we are. This is where I have a real issue with liberals in terms of this, like, kumbaya, everybody, one world, no. It doesn't work like that, because no matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody different out there, and we're always going to have an innate need to identify somebody as a threat. And that doesn't mean that you have to act upon that, but you have to be respectful of the fact that that's our DNA. There's always going to be somebody different, and the best we can try to get here is a protocol which respects them and what they are, and respects yourself for what it is, and one does not encroach upon the other. And if we can achieve that, it will be, copacetic. But we'll never, ever have a 100%, we're all family, because it doesn't work that way. It's just not, that's not our DNA.
So I think part of it is, like you titled this Us Versus Them, and part of maturing as a person is being able to tell the difference between us versus them and us and them. So, there's certain people who want to make it us versus them over silly stuff. And then there's other people who want to try to make it us and them over things that can get you killed. And so maturity and growth of character is to realize which distinctions matter and which distinctions are fun to play around with.
So you two seem to be developing two different tribes here. So Miles is of the mindset that tribalism equals war, equals safety, and to eliminate tribalism is to destroy the essential humanity. I'm paraphrasing both of you, so correct me if I'm wrong. And Seth, you're saying that tribalism is to be outgrown, and that to reach quintessence humanity, we must lay aside tribalism. So Miles says that tribalism is quintessently human, and Seth is saying to reach peak human, we must lay aside tribalism.
I mean, I'm more of, you've got to make sure your tribalism is over something that is important. So, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna fight because people like coffee and I don't. You know, that's something to joke about and rib each other over. But, you know, there are things that I will fight about, you know, harming the people I care about in a physical or deeply emotional way. That does get me riled up, and that can bring the pain to the person doing it. So I just want to make sure that the tribalism that I'm striving for is a mature, life-sustaining tribalism and not a petty, underdeveloped tribalism. And I'm pretty sure Miles would believe the same thing, but it's just so easy in today's, you know, instant flame wars where everybody, nobody has self-control and everybody's anonymous on the internet because I keep falling into it. You know, you're spewing hate and vitriol and venom-laden daggers at people that if you met them, you know, at a restaurant, you would probably end up talking about the weather and realizing everything you had in common. But because you're a Republican and they're a Democrat, you know, you're thinking, I wonder if we can make firing squads and hangings legal in the country again. So anyway,
you're right. You're right on, Seth. I mean, that's the key here, is the separation of tribalism as a thing and a recognition that it is a thing, and an entirely separate issue of respect and of protocol and of ceremony and of how we interact with each other. That the two, in my mind, are mutually exclusive, but they get forgotten because people will use tribalism as an excuse to put their respect away. And that's when we get into trouble. You can have tribalism. It's fine for you to love the Cowboys. It's fine for me to love the Eagles. I don't know. I don't, but it would be. It's fine. But it comes down to whether or not we all agree on a protocol in which we can behave and then get along. And if we can't respect that protocol, we're like a 4-year-old child in a glassware store that goes in and looks at all the glasses and knows that they could break them all if they wanted to, and something in the back of their mind, usually their parents, tells them, you don't want to do that, sonny, because you do that, you're going to put down a reign of hurt on yourself. And that's the thing that holds them back. When we've got that line, innate line in our heads that says, yeah, I didn't agree with that YouTube video that's there, but I'm not going to be the troll that writes that stupid comment there, right? If you don't cross that line, then everything can work. You can still disagree with somebody. You can agree with their right to say it, but you don't cross the line and seek to the lowest common level and be a troll. And if we can recognize that behavior is different than the reason why you might feel like you want to do that, it's that self-restraint that you've got to hold yourself back, we can progress. But I think maybe in the last 10 years, we've taken a great step backwards in regards to that because of the anonymity of the internet.
You mentioned the internet troll. There are exceptions. There are people who just want to watch the world burn. But I think most internet trolls actually think they're doing the right thing. They're enlightening. This person is clearly ignorant. It's my job to bring them up. And so they're trying to aspire to Seth's way of thinking of making everybody my tribe. They're incorrect. If I make them correct, now we're all on the same side. So I will write something cutting and snarky and insulting because that somehow makes them right. Just like when you spank a child, bring down the world of hurt, to use your phrase, that correction, that painful correction, makes a better person. And I think most internet trolls actually think that's what they're doing, with a few exceptions of the ones who just want to make the world burn.
Well, many of them will hide behind the banner of tribalism as a justification for bad behavior. I can say that because I'm a staunch, fill in the blanks.
Right.
No, you can't say that. You can't be an a-hole because you're a member of a tribe. Otherwise, you're going to make that
you're a member
tribe
of the
look
a-hole
like...
tribe.
Exactly. And that the tribe themselves will reject you eventually. It may not be immediate, but eventually they will reject you because they don't want to be perceived as that way. Otherwise, they cannot put forward their, opinions or their own thing, their own function. So no, you can't misbehave. There's a difference between maturity and tribalism, and that's the key. If we can just see that as two separate things, this will work.
You mentioned being put out of the tribe. If we go back to the primitive man metaphor that we're using here, anyone who is dangerous, who is we're not sure, right? You went back to the friend or foe. People who are not sure if they're friend or foe. If we go back to primitive man, a deformed baby, we're not sure if they're a friend or foe. The smart thing to do, the abundance of caution thing to do, is to put them out of the tribe. So we're protecting our tribe, and we do that. And we saw that just a couple of weeks ago in the James Gunn thing, right? Hollywood put him out of their tribe because they realized he might be a danger to them. He said some things a decade ago that today aren't appropriate, and Hollywood said, that's dangerous. Let's put him out of our tribe. And this is, it's exactly the same thing. Almost anything that you could talk about today, any conflict, could be framed in this concept of either building my tribe or protecting my tribe. And it's all well-intentioned. But somehow intentions seem to be more important than outcomes. But I wanted to make a point. I think that, I asked the question, what happens if you remove tribalism from a person entirely? And Miles, your knee-jerk immediate answer was they die. I think we have a class of humans today for whom tribalism don't exist. We call them sociopaths. They belong to no group. They are lone wolves unto themselves. They often move from group to group because they are part of no group. They can blend in. But nobody wants to be called a sociopath, right? Not all sociopaths are dangerous, and all dangerous people are sociopaths. But I think when you remove tribalism, you end up with an absolute deformity of what we know as humanity. And our label for it today is sociopath.
I mean, you could also make the point that their tribe is just a tribe of one. So they are the lowest rung of humanity. Not necessarily outside humanity. They're just the lowest base form of it. But, so tribalism, it's sort of, tribalism is sort of like anger. It's not necessarily good or it's not necessarily bad. It's how you use the emotion and what the emotion does to you that determines if it's good or bad.
You can also, it's good. It's a little complicated because you can be within a tribe, but within that tribe, you can be contrary to the tribe's protocol. Like I'm kind of like that. I'm in the United States. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I don't tend to operate my life like the majority of people of my age, in my race, and in my group. I tend to be quite contrary to that. That's just me. I've always been like that. I've always been a bit of a black sheep. But having said that, I still associate with a tribe, right? I'm still in that group. But it doesn't mean that I have to follow the direction of that tribe exact. This is not a perfect science where you say, if the tribe says, I'm a Republican, therefore I'm going to vote this way. I don't like abortion. I don't like this. I don't like that. I'm conservative on money, blah, blah, blah. That is somewhat naive because each one of those issues may not represent the entirety of the challenges that group has to deal with. And there may be areas where you don't agree with one or the other. And you can still associate with a group. You don't have to necessarily be, on every single part of that group's, commandments, if you like.
I think that to some degree, we don't know who we are until we know who we're against. I think that is a fundamental part of the formation of a human personality. We can know what we do, and I have young children. I'm getting less young every day. That's how that works. But I spent a lot of time in their early days saying, we don't do that, or here's what we do. I'm inculcating, I'm brainwashing them, right? That's most parenting is brainwashing. And when I bring in, for example, my religious beliefs into my family, I have loaned my faith to my child. At some point, that faith has to become hers. She either will accept it or reject it. That's her choice. But she cannot live off of my faith her whole life. At some point, she has to make it her own. That's true of almost everything, where you get from your tribe, this is how we do things. But Miles, to your example, you have to choose to accept that. And you either do or you don't. And there's nothing that can make you accept every plank of every platform of every part of every tribe. But, you have to find this go along to get along thing. At some point, when you become too contrarian, the tribe puts you out. Mm-hmm. And you're on your own. And you have a choice to either go find your own tribe, which works, or if you're a charismatic person, you can build your own tribe. Everybody come to me. I will be the foundation of a new tribe. That certainly happens. But to the people who, I think, to go back to my original point, we can't really know what we stand for until we know what we stand against. And often that is, you have to see something and say that is abhorrent to me. Now let me go think of why it's abhorrent to me, and let me formulate my thoughts about that. And I think too many people right now are still living on their parents' faith, to stretch that analogy. They are Republicans because they were Republicans, and whatever the Republican Party tells them, that's what they believe. Or they are actors, and they do whatever Hollywood says, or they're scientists and they do whatever scientists say. Whether they believe it or not, they go along to get along. And I think that this tribalism thing, that's the downside of that, is it squelches individuality in such a way that at some point you have to surrender yourself to the tribe, which is both, beneficial and but also damning, in that you never get to be the person you truly are. Because you're having to accept what the tribe says. That was a lot of rambling. Did any of that make any sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
yeah, I mean, let me throw a couple of expansions on that. If everybody in the tribe acts herd-like, and they all follow the same direction because the tribe says this is what we do and we're all going to do it, and so without question, we all follow that path, then what happens is we're putting all of our faith in that the leader of the tribe, the shepherd, the person at the front that's moving the herd along, has the best interest of everybody in the tribe before their own. And human nature and history will show that rarely occurs. The old absolute power corrupts absolutely thing. And that's the problem with tribes, is that it's based purely on ideology before it's based on proclamation. So somebody has to firstly agree with the ideology of the tribe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to abide by all proclamations of the leader of the tribe. Is that going to go to what you were saying?
Yeah, I think so. And sometimes the leader is the tribe. Sometimes there's not a leader. If you've ever watched a herd of cows, there's not a leader. They just kind of meander around until they generally find a direction. And I think that's what a lot of what's going on. It's what's the story of ancient Greece? I can't remember, where you go into the cornfield and you find, or the wheat field, you find the stalks that are higher than the others, and you cut them off. And that's the lesson there, is that to make everybody to have peace, you have to cut off those who stand above the others. The ancient Japanese proverb there is that the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. That's a very conformity minded sort of thing, and that works. But also without leaders, without stalks that stand above the others, without nails that stick up, there is no progress. There's no advancement. You're just a herd meandering aimlessly along. So there's a tug there between being part of the tribe and creating a new tribe or steering your tribe. Seth, what are you thinking?
Well, a couple of random thoughts since we're just kind of throwing those out now. A plane takes off. A plane takes off best against the wind. If there's nothing coming against it, how is it going to soar? It'll just kind of sit there on the ground. And two, if all of life were like a democracy, a herd of pigs would elect the farmer who fills the trough, president every time, regardless of how many he takes out the back and slaughters. So you can't just go along with the group because you're lured in under false pretenses. Hey, come to the dark side. We have cookies. Oh, by the way, we take your soul as well. But, oh, wait, I already ate the cookie, so you can't take it back. So you've got to put some thought into your tribe. And this is whatever, your faith, Christian, Mormonism, Buddhist, Islam, you got to put some faith. You got to put some thought into that. Democrat or Republican, you need to put some thought. Is the government the answer, or are you the answer for your problems? You've got to put some thought in there. Do you want to try to figure out, how to flint knap things, or do you want to learn computers for a trade? You need to put some thought in that. So you've got to take the time to examine what comes at you and don't just get carried along with the flow because, if that lead lemming just goes off the cliff, everybody thinks he's headed to a swimming pool. So there's a whole bunch of randomness that just...
Yeah. I think, as all discussions do, right around the 30-minute mark, it devolves into just random platitudes and quotes. So we've reached that point. Congratulations, we've had a full discussion. But I think, Seth, you make an excellent point. You have to be constantly questioning your position in any tribe, and that questioning is what builds character and what builds strength. And so my hope is that you, the listener, will start looking at the world in terms of tribes. Look around. See how many tribes you see in your day, right? And ask yourself why those tribes exist. And ask yourself if you want to be a part of one or not. I think a lot of the times people just get, they get born into a tribe or get sucked into a tribe, or they're just, wandering along and a tribe says, hey, come without. And then that defines their whole life without any thought, without any personal responsibility. And so I hope that this discussion has been one that will just raise your awareness. Just look around. I know that for me, when I started looking for this sort of thing just recently, I saw it everywhere. Down to, what kind of candy bars you like. You like chocolate or do you like white chocolate? Well, it's a tribe. The left Trix, the right Twix, those commercials that are on right now. It's everywhere. So just pay attention and don't be a lemming. Don't get sucked in. Don't be part of the herd.
So before we go on, I do have to credit Miles. I took the time to type this out. People use tribalism as an excuse to throw courtesy away. That was some good extemporaneous speak in there, Miles. Good job.
Okay. I'll take that.
And courtesy, as I tell my children, is simply telling people that you care about them. If you're discourteous, you don't care. If you care but are discourteous, then you're not acting in a way that is what you think. So courtesy is important. All right. Any 30 seconds to wrap this up. Miles, go.
If you have been in a tribe that you feel you've been oppressed or the tribe as a whole feels like they've been oppressed, it's important that you as an individual can rise above that and look at every situation in that the future is not always dictated to by what the past is. In other words, rise above that position as an oppressed tribe and think for the future and think, what can we all do to get along and make the world a better place?
Seth, go.
The two strongest groups of any tribe are those who have swallowed the lie, hook, line, and sinker, and those who have reasoned it out and decided that's the place they want to be. So if you're going to be strong for something, make sure it's because you reasoned it and not because you thought the packaging looked good and then you're like, oh crap, I'm in too deep to get out.
Wow. Good stuff, guys. And I only have one thing to say to add it up. Seth, what happened this week in history?
All right, Mark. Well, this week we're doing a week in history and not a day in history because the exact date is unknown. Sometime at the end of August in 1988, the IRC was born. Uh, sorry. In late summer of 1988, Jarkero Oki something. It starts with an O. I'm sorry, I can barely speak
Finnish.
American English. Yes, he unleashed IRC upon the world from the University of Oulu in Finland. He got in touch with people at the University of Denver and Oregon State University across the pond. They had their own IRC network running and wanted to connect to the Finnish network. They had gotten the program from one of his friends. And then another non-English name I can't pronounce. He was the first non-Finnish person to use IRC. IRC then grew larger and got used on the entire Finnish national network, FUNET, and then connected to NordNet, the Scandinavian branch of the internet. And in November of 1988, IRC had spread across the internet. And in the middle of 89, there were some 40 servers worldwide. And that happened this week in history, Mark. And now back to you.
IRC, in case you don't know, Internet Relay Chat. It's been around for a long time. It's still around. We're using it right now. When I say that Jinda is in the chat room, that is an IRC chat room that is still going. It's pretty much nerds only, but that's okay. Our tribe needs a place to hang out, and IRC is still it. That's cool. 1988. Everything, you never think of things as some things as having an inventor. You just think of it as being around. Like sliced bread, somebody invented that, and right. IRC, it's ubiquitous, but somebody invented it. That's cool stuff.
And he doesn't know the exact date. He said it was by the end of August. So it was it was something he was doing in addition to his summer job. So this is just kind of, FOSS software rules the world.
So I used to say, what do you have to lower my productivity thus making you seem like a better hiring option? But lately, you seem to be finding ways for me to throw my money away. So, Seth, what is the way this week that you have me shouting, take my money?
All right. Well, if you have ever had a can opener and thought, can I use this to make a cheeseburger? Well, look no further. There's a website where you can order a cheeseburger in a can and have it shipped to you. I reached out to them, but they didn't contact me back because this is basically a British thing, and so the shipping would make it extraordinarily expensive. It's not something you would probably want a lot of, but it's one of those, if they had American options, I would get one just to get it. I did some research on other cheeseburgers in a can, and this one woman who she reviewed her experiences and said, I would not foster the rape of my senses like that upon another living person. But her description was not of this product, but of a different cheeseburger in a can. So cheeseburger in a can, it's from Britain. Hell Britannia, Britain rules the world. Woohoo! Fish and chips and cheeseburgers in a can.
This is awesome. The tagline on the website is, "This is so good it would bring a tear to glass eyes." I so now want a cheeseburger in a can. I don't want to eat it, mind you. I just want to have it on the counter as a discussion piece.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is for. Because I personally doubt it would be good, but it's one of those things, that you need to have. This should be a bucket list item. That maybe we ought to call this the bucket list of links. And this is something everybody needs to do, is to order and eat cheeseburger in a can.
It's the whole bun and everything in the can? It looks like maybe it is. How do you can a bun and the cheese isn't melted? So an important part of the canning process is heat, and yet the cheese isn't melted. So that means it's not cheese. What is this thing?
It's some percent cheese.
At one point, some part of it used to be milk.
Yes. Cheeseburger is a class of things and not a descriptive title.
I'm going to make sure next time I order a cheeseburger, I ask the guy serving me, did this come in a can?
Oh, wow. That's amazing, Seth. I love the fact that we can always count on you to bring the randomness. That's why this section is called Dev Random, because, man, you could write some good cryptology out of the randomness from these links. So this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feed back to us, how you can comment. Tell me your thoughts on the whole tribalism thing. Remember, I asked the question, is my mindset uniquely American? This is a show of American people, and sometimes we have a very Amerocentric view. North American, South Americans get a little frustrated when we claim all of America. This is a North American mindset. So
I personally believe.
So I would like to know your thoughts. Go to elementop.com, ELEMENTOPIE, elementop.com. Click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. Answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA. For example, what plant grows in a cornfield? If you can't answer that, you can't leave me feedback. And then you can fill out the form there, and that sends an email that gets priority in my inbox. And I look forward to hearing to those. Or you can dial 559-IAM-OPIE and leave us a voicemail. Haven't had one of those in a while. Or you can send an email to GeekRant@elementop.com. All of those three things will get to the same place, my inbox, and we will know what you have to say. Also, throw money at us. That's a thing. One of the things we were going to talk about, and we may talk about it next week, is how to chase your passion while making a living, right? And this show, by the way, is my passion. Not this show in particular, but doing this thing, entertaining, educating, speaking extemporaneously. This is the thing that I would like this to be my livelihood. I would like to do this for the rest of my life. I would like to provide content to you and people like you forever. But right now I have a job where I'm working, 50 to 60 hours every week because I can't afford to do my passion. And I know I'm not the only one who's having that problem. And we're going to have a discussion about that. But you could help fulfill my dream for less than the cost of a Starbucks. So ask yourself.
Or less than the cost of a cheeseburger and a can.
There you go. Does this show bring you $5 worth of entertainment a month? If so, now ask the question, are you the kind of person for whom $5 a month is something you won't notice? For some of you, the answer to that is no. You cannot afford $5 a month. Okay, that's fine. Some of you absolutely can afford $5 a month and would never notice it. That's $1.25 an episode if we do 4 episodes a week. Go to patreon.com, Patreon, patreon.com/elementopie, and pledge $1.25. That's $5 a month. You won't notice it. You'll help fund my dream. But really, the first question is the thing. If this show is worth $5 to you, pay for what you like. If it's not, then don't pay for it. I don't want a handout. I don't want charity. I want to be worth what you pay me. So there you go. An unsolicited advertisement. I'll just leave it at that. Guys, any final words of wisdom before we say goodnight?
Good job, guys.
Crickets.
All right. Fun discussion. I like these off-the-cuff things. It's nice when we do research and we have things prepared, but it's also fun to just extemporize and speak while thinking. And this was a good one.
Have we ever done research and had stuff prepared?
We don't need that. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week because that's it for this episode of the GeekRant. And remember, pay for what you like, dang it.
Toodaloo.
All right.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jinda.
So.
Glad to have you with us.
Hey, it's nice when you don't need to have the stuff all prepped out and it's just like free flows like that. It's so much better.
Well, you put smart people and give them a smart topic and good stuff happens.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right. I'm cutting off the YouTube feed. Bye, guys. Wow, my fat really jiggled when I did that. As I'm losing weight, this thing is just becoming... This is becoming a thing. See ya. That's probably going to be the frame that YouTube picks. It's going to be my fat jiggle there.